Good morning, folks. It's Thursday the 8th of May 2025. I've got two books here. I'm taking this one back to the library. Erebus and The Dragonfly. So I ordered this one in. It's just released either late last year or the first months of this year. Erebus and The Dragonfly by Robin Feltley, or Fortley. Robin Feltley. And I've got a little over halfway through it, and I'm so annoyed and frustrated, not with the book, that it's just makes you too upset to continue. I highly recommend it, and I'm going to return it so others can read it that bit quicker. What's that you say? New Zealand Air Pioneers and the Accident Inspectors. So there have been plenty of books on Erebus. Now Erebus, as you remember, basically amounts to that the government-owned Air New Zealand deliberately flew a plane into the side of a volcano, killing everyone on board, and then blamed the pilots, with their tame Air Accident Inspector Ron Chippendale, who's as corrupt as the day is long, by some accounts. This book, and Erebus is about half of it, but you don't get to Erebus till much later through the book. It's about the 6th out of 8 or so air accident investigations. So this more covers it covers how the air accident inspector in the early days, who then trained the later ones, who then trained like Ron Chippendale. He was the big name during Erebus because he was the chief air accident inspector. But how, their training wasn't really up to it. And to be fair, it's probably hard for it to be up to the standard of what US air transport investigation crashes would be up to. But I made a few notes on the back of my scrap of paper here about the worst egregiousness things. Now, after the initial air crash investigation, straight after the crash, which of course found the pilots were at fault, even though Air New Zealand, the next day they had Air New Zealand people down in Antarctica, literally stealing documents off the ice and hiding them, because they knew they'd programmed, they'd briefed the pilots with the wrong coordinates. They'd programmed it into the flight computer, and the plane flew perfectly straight into the side of a volcano as it was programmed to. There were people who went and took documents and that from the pilots' houses after the crash. These people know they did wrong. They were paid by somebody. Were they paid directly by Air New Zealand? Were they licensed private investigators? Were they retired police officers? We don't know. And after the initial investigation, there was a royal commission with a retired, very senior judge, Peter Mahon, I believe it is, Mahon, Peter Mahon. And he was the one who, at the end of it, or in part, he came up with the term an orchestrated litany of lies. Not just that there was a couple of lies crept in, not just a few inaccuracies or memory failed, an orchestrated litany of lies. So Air New Zealand deliberately orchestrated, deliberately planned a great big long list of lies. Because they'd said, for instance, that the pilots flew much lower than they were authorised. And then there was proof that Air New Zealand had produced, thousands of advertising brochures saying that the pilots flew much lower. So they knew what they're saying was lies. There was, the theft of a notebook, and they tore the cover of one so that it could be passed off as a different notebook. Things that were picked up on the ice. Documents and the atlas that the pilot had. But anyway, and if you gave if you gave the right kind of wrong evidence to the Royal Commission, you might get an MBE, and I believe an MBE is the one just below a knighthood. So there you go. They basically gave out knighthoods if you said that didn't testify to the whatever. It was just even earlier crashes, much earlier, decades earlier, There've been crashes. One plane crashed up in the North Island, and they knew that there's like radio detector beacons, a little beacon thing, but it's a radio, and the plane can hone in on it. And there was an issue with two beacons which are a long way apart, but the frequencies were very close together, and it could be confused. And the technicians working in that area knew about it, and they were literally told, if you tell the Axe investigation this, we will hunt you to the ends of the earth and charge you with Official Secrets Act. Laws. As if they were spies. They were just people who worked for the airports who knew that there was a problem with the beacons. So, Erebus and the Dragonfly, so it builds up towards Erebus by pointing out the very poor quality of air transport crash investigations in New Zealand, especially up until that date. So it was sort of no surprise that Erebus was a stuff-up. Remember, of course, that they Air New Zealand then went and appealed the Royal Commission at the New Zealand Court of Appeal, and then they went and appealed. The result of that was appealed to the Privy Council, which is in England. That's been taken away now, but it used to be that in Australia and New Zealand you could go to the Privy Council as the highest court of appeal. And they came down with a finding that the judge's statements and orchestrated litany of lies was, if I remember it correctly, outside of his terms of reference, even though that went against their own precedent that a judge sitting in a Royal Commission could pass opinion without having to get the advance permission of the people he was passing opinion against. So some people like to claim that part of Justice Mahn's Royal Commission was I've heard one media say discredited. No, it wasn't discredited. It was just found that his statement, an orchestrated litany of lies, was outside of his terms of reference, even though the Privy Council was clearly wrong and went against their own precedent set by those own lords and judges. But there you go. I've got it a bit over halfway through. I've lost my bookmark now. And I'm just feeling so upset about the absolute corruption that was permeated all the senior levels of Air New Zealand. How they intimidated staff. And the air crash investigation people. And yet they all came out of it smelling of roses with big fat paychecks. And some of them had, if not quite knighthoods, they had MBEs and other honours that are almost a knighthood. I recommend this book if you can stomach it, as an overview of the crash investigation system. So I know people who are interested in the Erebus crash have often got, there's been more than one book. Even Justice Mahn, the book he first wrote, and he may have written another one before he died, the book he first wrote after the Royal Commission closed had extra information in it that only became available after his Royal Commission had closed and given its report. So information is still leaking out. There's people out there, they know they shredded documents or at least stole them and buried them in a safe somewhere. Who knows if they'll ever see the light of day. Erebus and the Dragonfly, available at your local library. And the guy that wrote it, he's actually the teenage boy standing next to the captain. His parents were reasonably wealthy and he could afford to go on sightseeing flights. So that's that book. I'll take it back to the library. And the other one I got, which I'd heard about but never read. We're all familiar with The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. It was a standard book in primary and intermediate schools in New Zealand, possibly Australia. Technically it's book 2 of 7. It was the first one written, and kids in wartime London get moved to a country house. They go into a wardrobe, it's full of fur coats and overcoats, and they push through, and the back of the wardrobe opens into a forest in a snow-filled land, because it's, you know, magic. It's obviously more a kid's story, but it's a classic of English literature of the early 1900s, or mid-1900s. And I'd heard about the book called The Magician's Nephew. So this was written later. It was written later, but The Magician's Nephew. So it explains how that wardrobe got to be there. It explains at the very end. But it explains how that wardrobe got to be there and why it's magical and why it's connected to Narnia. So, I read this on only two sessions. It's got quite a few pictures. Would you call them line drawings? And the odd one takes up 3/4 or a full page. So, yeah, it was got through that pretty quick. So I'll return that while I'm at the same time. Yeah, I got, I'm not sure if depressed or upset is the right word, or frustrated, or, and I'm not complaining about the book as such. I'm just saying that, you know, when there's so much corruption in the high levels of Air New Zealand administration and that, you know, good pilots trying to do the right thing sometimes, but, or oftentimes, but, yeah. If you've been following Erebus and you've got the other several books, definitely either buy or read this one, and available at your local library. Possibly available on various kind of e-reader and Kindle type things. And remember that even if you do have e-reader and Kindle and other type of electronic things, even if you click the button that says buy now, it's really only renting. And whenever they want, they can just delete the title from your device. They can edit out bits, so they can delete it entirely. And if you read on about page 200 of their 400 pages of terms, you'll find that they redefine the word buy, so that they can do that. Alright folks, I've got to get these books back to the library. Anyone who's interested in the story of, you know, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and what started it off, this book written later but as a prequel, yeah, give it a go. Won't take you too long to read. But yeah, there's The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. We all know that, had it as a school book in sort of English class or class. Okay folks, that's all. I'll get these books back to the library. And there could still be people waiting for that Erebus and the Dragonfly. Erebus and the Dragonfly. Yeah, because I was on the list for that one. So there could still be people waiting for that one. I'll get it back to them. I needed a break from it. I read the Magician's Nephew, and I did not feel like going back to the Erebus and the Dragonfly. So, a good book. But I won't be finishing it. I'll be releasing it back into the library system so someone else can enjoy it. Alright folks, looks like, what are we at today? 8th of May. We're supposed to be getting 20 or 21 degrees today, Celsius. So, quite a warm sunny day. Or warm, bit of cloudy maybe. Given that we're well into autumn, some trees have got almost no leaves now. Some trees still hanging on to a few. And, early in the morning I heard a plane going right overhead, which means that there's norwesterly winds up high. So the planes have to do a loop past the city, go out over the sea and come back in from the other direction. So up high there's certainly hot nor'wester winds. Alright folks, bye. Go! Go! Well, I'm not going to sit here all day. I've got to go to the blooming library. Got to get these books back. Cheers.